There we go. We are rolling.
Okay.
So, Johnny, we're here with Johnny Edwards. He's going to tell us about the Masonic Cemetery.
Well, what I was telling you, Patricia, is that uh, Freemasons in their cemeteries, there's a different type of perspective that we have on our Masonic cemeteries that maybe the average person does not have for a regular cemetery. And our perspective is it's an extension of our obligation as Freemasons. And these obligations that we give are basically just, I mean, they're all very silly and long and old English, but basically it's designed to make us better men and to care for our brothers in any way that we can without material injury to ourselves or our own families. And so when these cemeteries are here, and these brothers that we have that we've never met are buried here along with their wives and their family. That is, through my personal opinion, and there are a few others that really look at it like this. It is an extension of our obligation to care for our brothers who are no longer here. They've been given to the earth, and they no longer have to worry about what's going on in the world as we have it. But I look at it, I take it very seriously. It's not just mowing. It's not about me. It's not about you. It's not about anything else. It's really about caring for them in the best way, like I would care for my own mother or my own grandfather or my own father if they were living. And there's so little that you can do in a cemetery other than care for it. But um, um, if you don't do anything as a Freemason to a Masonic cemetery, you are going against your obligations, in my personal opinion. And there's other people that other brothers will look at me going, you're kind of reaching out there. I was like, well, no, that's how I believe it is, and that's how it should be. So that's pretty much my little twist that I was going to share with you.
Okay. Now, tell me about this cemetery. Now, we know about the vandalism
Mm-hmm.
that this happened, and you're in the process
Mhm.
of it. There was some people walking around. Those
Yeah.
are the individuals who are going to
Yeah.
help with the restoration. So, with a little bit of the history.
You want to go back 150 years?
Yeah, let's go back 150
Let's
years.
go back 150 something years. So this cemetery used to be called the Johnson Family Cemetery back in the day. I like the quote, back in the day. And so back in 1870s, in 1870, the Johnson family, who are buried in this portion of the section. This is called the public burial ground, and I'll get to that why it's called the public burial ground. Um, they sold this cemetery to the Masonic Lodge that was in Lafayette, the town of Lafayette, right down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And with the understanding that this land that they are selling, this cemetery and the land that surrounds this cemetery, can be used for Masonic burials. However, you must always call this area, which I call it the grove or whatever you want to call it because of the trees, but this whole area is called the public burial ground, and it's in the deed, quote unquote, line public burial ground. We have to allow the average the non-Masons of the community to be buried in this cemetery in the public burial ground. We can do whatever we want with the Masonic cemetery that ends up going around it in an L section.
So it starts over here and kind of goes.
Yep, it's like an L. It goes whoosh, and then all the way back. And so that is technically the Masonic cemetery, and this is, by all accounts, legally has to be called the public burial ground because that was the stipulation in the deed. Nobody knows that except for people like me. But still, this is called the public burial ground. And so the Johnson family was very interested. We just found this out. Have you met Greg Gouliard?
Yes.
Okay. So Greg is a big-time history buff of his town of Lafayette. And that's his bread and butter. He's just the most interesting guy to talk to. And this road here is called Mineral Springs Road that the road to the cemetery is on. Mm-hmm. Most people don't put, there's always a reason why roads are called the name that they're called. Whatever, John's Road or Peter's Road. This is called Mineral Springs Road. Well, we found out today that there's a reason why it's called Mineral Springs Road, because the Johnson family owned Mineral Springs right over there. It's got solar panels. You can go right to the edge there when you get a chance. And over there was a two-story southern, two-story, two-porched, high and low, southern plantation looking mineral springs out there that people would come all over the Northwest and they would go drink this water. And the funny thing is there's all the accounts state that all the water tastes terrible, but people will come and drink it anyway, which I always found funny because, if it drinks, you must really feel strongly about that cup of water, even if it tastes terrible. And so we were able to add more to this history of this cemetery by Greg finding out and sharing that bit of information about who this Johnson family was, who used to own this cemetery, and it gave it a little bit more of a completed history to it. Not just it came from the Johnson family, but it came from a family of note where people came all over the Northwest in the early 1800s, all the way up until about 1910, I guess, when the family finally just walked away from it. So that's pretty much my 2 cents. I will tell you that the earliest cemetery, I looked, I always forget, I know it's the 1850s. The earliest burial in this cemetery is 1855. So it's very early Oregon history. And the last burial was around the 1900s, the 1990s sometime.
So tell me about Mr. Corkle.
Mr. Corkle, poor Mr. Corkle. Mr. Corkle was an older man, deaf. He lived in Lafayette, and he had a girlfriend, and his girlfriend's name was Miss Marple. And these are real names, all right? And Miss Marple had a son by the name of Mr. Marple. I forget what his name is. I call him Mr. Marple, Miss Marple, and Mr. Corkle. Well, Mr. Corkle's girlfriend was Miss Marple, who actually had this is 1880 something, by the way, had an affair with Mr. Corkle, who was, they were both fairly older in age. I don't remember how old, I can't remember how old he is, but he was fairly older. And Miss Marple was married, but she somehow was able to justify going over to Mr. Corkle's house and visiting. And the Marple family was Miss Marple, Mama Marple. You had Miss Marple's husband, Mr. Marple, and then you had the son, we'll call him Young Marple. And they got into a plot to go steal money that they heard that Mr. Corkle has in the home. So this is all documented, and I've read this several times. It just sounds like a silly, untrue story, but this is, for the most part, how it goes. So they got the Marples got into this plan. They hitched a plan together that Mama Marple was going to go out and hang out with Mr. Corkle one night, and she was going to leave a window open in the kitchen, or kitchen area, whatever you want to call it, and Young Marple was going to climb through, hit Mr. Corkle over the head, and while he was out, passed out, they were going to go and find this money, steal this money, and then they were going to come up with this plot story about what happened afterwards. He would know, and whatever. Well, the problem is that when Young Marple came in, it's just so funny. When young Marple came into the area to look at the window, all the windows were locked, and so he was panicking, and he's looking, and he could see him in through the window and everything, and then Young Marple panicked, kicked in the door, and made Mr. Corkle panic. They wrestled, and Mr. Marple decided to start killing him with a knife. Found a knife somewhere. I can't remember exactly. So it was, and he basically almost cut off his head. It was bad. And there's blood everywhere, and they panicked. They're like, because that's not at all the way the plan was supposed to go down. And the Marples left out of there all bloody and everything, left a mess, and they just went home, locked the door, and pretended, nothing happened. Well, and I can't remember exactly how it all got. So I think they put two and two together because everybody in town, small town, knew that Miss Marple was having a little fun with Mr. Corkle, and but anyway, so young Marple got arrested, taken to the courthouse in downtown Lafayette. Lafayette used to be the county seat, not McMinnville, and went through the court process, got convicted, was sentenced to hang, and they hung the dude. And in the gallows that were built right outside the courthouse in the downtown McMinnville area. Greg could show you exactly where it's at. Anyway, and you would think that it would end there, but oh no, it has ramifications to today. That's why this is such an interesting case. Mr. Marple was hung, and he was screaming all these different weird things, which I can't remember. And Miss Marple, Mama Marple, was there, and out of a frantic passion, she goes, "All you mothers, I hope, or you mothers out there, I hope that your sons have to go through the same thing that my son has just had to." And that got turned into, she cursed the town of Lafayette. So have you heard about the Lafayette burned 3 times?
Yes.
Okay, have you heard about the Lafayette ghost, or the Lafayette witch?
Well, yes.
Okay, well,
yes.
It's all baloney.
Yeah.
But the theory is that Greg and I have come up with that that Miss Mama Marple throwing down that "you mothers, I hope have your sons go through what my," got twisted into that was the curse, that the town was going to be burned 3 times, even though she didn't say nothing about burned 3 times.
I actually saw the article from the trial when this happened, and I'm trying to remember exactly what she said, but she's quoted in the articles from the period.
Nothing about burning.
Nothing about burning.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah.
But I can't remember exactly what it is she
Well,
said.
I don't remember exactly either.
Yeah, she
and
but the town. We'll make sure that we put that in here.
Yeah, whatever. And I would appreciate the real quote. That would be perfect because I'm going off the top of my head. But anyway, there was no burning or no burned 3 times. But to this day, you have people coming up to this cemetery swearing that there was a witch that was hung by a tree limb up here. There was never ever documentation of anyone put to death up in the cemetery, and they have, in my personal opinion, and Greg, our local historian, Greg Gouliard, he and I have agreed that that's a bunch of hogwash, and that the witch burned Lafayette 3 times witch story got turned and all part of the Marple Corkle case.
Yeah.
Man, poor little Mr. Corkle is buried in our cemetery, and at least we give him honor by talking about him. I'd like to be able to say that he must have been a heck of a nice guy.
Well, he lost his head.
He lost his head. I'm not actually not sure about the losing the head. I want to say that he was almost decapitated. If I remember, I read that. So.